Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to you all. Welcome to you all. My name is Matthew Falvey, and I'm joined by Matthew Owen. That's right. We've got Ruby and Corey in the chat. We'll be taking chat comments, questions, all those kind of things. So we're going to start off with a quick minute review. I have a written review on a90skid.com if you want to know more about it without any spoilers, and then we'll be doing a big spoilerific discussion because there's really a lot to talk about with this movie. So, Matt, my review's already up on the site. What are your non-spoiler thoughts about this? Who should go see this movie?
It's going to be all right. I'm not super tied into the lore like other people are. Now seeing the movie, I can understand some of the complaints, but just as a sci-fi adventure, it's a little bit long in the tooth. It's
Hey, Matt.
What?
I had an audio issue, and nobody could hear you for the first minute.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. How about now? Are we good?
Now we're all good.
All right. I'm so sorry, guys. My audio's all messed up.
No,
All
that
right,
was my problem. It was my fault.
Okay.
Totally my fault.
Long story short, it's still a good film. The things that people are talking about online, love or hating it, it's generally up to those who are super into Star Wars, not into Star Wars enough, whatever. But if you're just going to look for starships blowing up and blasters and lightsabers and stuff, you're still going to have a good time. I would say the biggest detractor is the fact that it is 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it's one of those movies where you're going to look at your watch. At least for me, it was. So know that going in. It has a few pacing issues, but all told, like if you're a fan of Star Wars, young and old, still go see Star Wars Episode 8. It is nowhere near a bad film, like people might be trying to say. So yeah, I mean, that's without going into more spoiler stuff. It looks great. Sorry if I hit my mic. It sounds great. Some of the acting is good. They just took a few stumbles in some places.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
but
I mean,
visually and audibly, it's looks amazing. So if you just go in there and you just go, let's see how this picture looks to my eyes, you'll be pleased at that base value.
And I would say it goes beyond that, where there are a lot of stumbles here because he's trying to do something new with it.
Yeah.
But I think overall, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to hate some of the things depending on how hardcore you are, because there are a lot of very, very modern amenities in this movie that
they take liberties
big time, that are very, very jarring, and some work. Some things work really, really well. Some don't at all. It's a little bit too long. There's one sequence that could have been removed from the movie for the better completely. But I think the ending is so strong that even the most hardcore Star Wars fan that is so angry at some of the changes is going to feel pretty good about the ending. And overall, it kind of reminds me of Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi has a really fun beginning, has a great, great ending, and the middle kind of sucks.
I think that the Return of the Jedi is the best one, and it's great across the board. Matt, you can't.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's one in my heart. I don't know. Also, the ending I thought was a little. We'll have to talk about it because I feel a little bit differently as far as the ending, but maybe you're talking about the specifics. Here's the thing that I want to make very clear. Me going in, I'm not like super into Star Wars. I watched the original trilogy when I was a kid. I watched Return of the Jedi over and over and over because that's my favorite. Seen all the prequels, seen Force Awakens. Yeah, I've seen the things, but I'm not so deep into it that when people were complaining about things, I was like, oh, that's going to affect me. Even if you're a standard moviegoer who is aware of the original trilogy, there are going to be choices made in this film, creative choices that will be like, oh, what to you? Even like, don't think that you are free from the, oh, wow, what are they doing with Star Wars? It's going to go over your head. They make big enough changes in Star Wars Episode 8 where it could almost be named something different, and still, that's what we mean. Like they broke off almost in the way that they did with the prequels, but in a not bad way. Well, arguably, but it's less of a, oh, it's a remake, and more of a, we're finally expanding the universe. You're just going to have to take it or leave it kind of ordeal. It's hard to talk about this movie without spoiling stuff. So
that's going to be the end of the non-spoiler section. So now we have spoilers. All right. Spoilers are here.
If you have not seen Star Wars The Last Jedi, Go see it right now. Stop. If you're watching this pre-recorded, stop. We're going to start talking about spoilers, character deaths, all that kind of stuff. So just go and see the movie. Come back. Read Matt's review instead. You can always watch this video later.
So I would say overall, I've seen this movie twice now. When I first saw it, the comedy and the really jarring things, there were many times where I just thought, WTF? What is this? It felt very, very childish. It felt very, very broad. And like original Star Wars had comedy in it.
Yes.
But I think that a lot of times the comedy in this comes at a very poor time where it'll kill the tension of a lot of scenes and a lot of this. They'll be going for something really serious, and then they'll put this joke in that's like a very modern kind of joke, and jokes that use modern colloquialisms that feel very out of place for the movie.
There's like three kinds of comedy in this movie. There is the creature transition comedy, which we've seen all the time. So the little porgs, and Chewbacca, they'll pop up and they're, so in the middle of a battle fight, it'll be a porg, a cute little hamster thing, or scenes are intercut. So like there's that comedy, also slapstick. And then, like Matt is saying, there's these weird, like, one-offs. At a certain point when Finn is fighting Phantasma, which is, like, supposed to be this great battle that we've been leading up to for a movie and a half, he says, "Let's go, Chrome Dome," because she wears an all-chrome helmet. And I was like, really? And then the third kind is that almost random continuing joke past when it's funny. And the reason... Before I went in, Matt did say, I asked Matt what he thought of it without spoilers, and he said some of the humor is a little bit cringy. And I didn't think that a lot of it was that bad because it was peppered in far enough apart, and then there were some comedic scenes. The issue I took immediately is the film starts, you have your movie crawl, the planet, we're in this battle, this huge battle. And you see Poe Dameron come up on this huge starship destroyer. You're getting ready. It's Star Wars Episode 8. And the first interaction is a, hey, can you hear me or am I on hold joke? Which is not only like the most retreaded joke ever, but it takes the very intense kind of feeling you were getting from this starfight, the beginning of this epic movie you've been waiting to see, and it cheapens it so hard. And it even cheapens the whole outcome because they're like, that was our plan and that's how we blew it up. So... they got out by a silly joke. It just feels a little bit weak. And then so you start the movie with that kind of, whoa, that was weird. That's the most comedy I've ever seen from a Star Wars film. I'm not sure how to feel about it. But yeah, they definitely tried to marvel it up, I would say.
Corey in the chat is when he hasn't seen it and he's not a big Star Wars fan, but he was wondering, why are they doing this in movies now? And I thought, just like you had said, it's a Marvel thing. Marvel's been so successful with this kind of like line joke, ending a scene with a joke. It's something that I think works with the more mainstream audience, and I think that it keeps people from... It's kind of like somebody trying to talk about nerdy, geeky stuff, and then they like make a joke, or they're kind of self-deprecating, like, I'm not really that into it.
Yeah. Well, this one too, I think if you remove the jokes, a lot of this movie gets to some dark places. And since it is a Star Wars, it is a Disney film, they are trying to bring in families. So while you're having these kind of stories about the pull between darkness and light and killing people and decapitations, because every Star Wars movie has dismemberment and this film has several decapitations, they need to pepper in those kind of cute little moments. And before they may have done it a little bit more smoothly, but now, of course, yeah, you can see when the big little, or when the little hamster penguin thing pops up and goes, bah, bah, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be cuted out by that before we go into an action scene. So I think it's more to just to balance the tone, but also, just like Matt said, people go to big blockbusters not just expecting action and drama anymore. They expect the whole 9 yards. They expect to laugh. They expect to cry. They expect to be wowed, and they want an Oscar-winning performance. And when you're talking about a Star Wars film, it's that tenfold. So the weird comedy,
it's like the 80s all over again, where everything was comedy, action, drama, little bits of horror.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, they all did it so well. Why can't Star Wars take a gab?
Now, Star Wars had comedy in the original ones, but it was done in times where it was... Like, for example, okay, let's look at Star Wars A New Hope, because it's going to be impossible not to compare these movies, and I think you should, because... they're
a continuing story.
They are, yeah, it's a continuing story. All right, so when you got R2-D2 in the Jundland Wastes, when he's ran away from Luke, and he's they're using the cuteness of R2D2. He's making those like oh, cute noises. He's worried. The Jawas jump out. There's some like funny things that punctuate the fear, and then the Jawas are a bit of a comedy. But when Luke is being attacked by, like, say, sand people, that is scary. There's not a joke in between the sand people thing. There's not him saying to the sand people, hello, I'm holding for sand people's mother. Like, there's nothing, none of that crap is there. They just know when there's a time and a place, and I think that they shot themselves in the foot with the comedy. Not all the comedy was bad in The Last Jedi at all. There was just
I giggled a few times. I giggled a few times. I think it's just like you said. A lot of the times, and there was another big film that did this too. They sacrificed Guardians 2. They sacrificed really cool action film moments and really cool emotional moments at the expense of a joke that wasn't very funny. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 did it way worse as far as sacrificing the drama for the comedy. Yeah. But Star Wars has tinges of that. Let's hop off of the negative because there is some good stuff. And one of the things me and Matt both agree on is the visuals in this film. Not only the visuals, but the sound design. I want to speak to a specific moment, and then Matt, maybe you can also as well, because there's one moment. Well, there's like 3 moments that really stuck out to me. One of them was in the trailers already. But so deep spoilers, guys. In the endish of the film, essentially they all have to abandon. The whole film wraps around them trying to get off this cargo ship because they're running out of fuel, or off this big starship. The rebels, they're running out of fuel, and the New Order are hot in their tail. So towards the very, very end, they've gotten off the ship. There's one person left on the ship, and they're going into warp speed, and they turn around and they aim the ship at the fleet of it sounds confusing, but essentially they're going like a bajillion miles an hour through a whole fleet of bad guys. And what happens in that moment is right when it hits warp speed, all of the audio cuts and you get an almost anime. It looks like it was ripped out of an anime. This like streak of white that hits through the blackest of night sky. And then just all of a sudden, boom, 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 with no audio. And then all of a sudden a huge shockwave that just hits super hard. And it was one of the coolest Star Wars anything. One of the coolest Star Wars scenes I have ever seen. And that's why it's very hard for me to be like, this movie's bad. Because there is some of the best Star Wars stuff you will ever see in this. And then the other one is Snoke's chamber, specifically. The way they lit that. It's essentially, it looks like a big, if you've ever seen Twin Peaks, the red room, it's just like the walls are all red. Really hard, like rosy reds that disappear into nothing. A lot of different visual things this time in Star Wars. But Matt, tell me what you liked about the visuals.
That makes me think about how this movie
take a lot of chances.
Now, this movie compared to, say, The Force Awakens, even though there were some stumbles in this film, the chances that Rian Johnson took, I think he was a lot more successful at creating actual new Star Wars moments that were interesting.
Yes.
Like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi weren't just recreations of A New Hope. They brought in new things every time. And I think that the hyperspace into a ship, both times that happened, the theater I was in, people didn't expect the sound to drop out, obviously. The first one was like the first showing in Canada, right? It was like the 7 o'clock show. Everyone was like, whoa! And then all kind of laughed together because we realized we got caught by this no sound trick. The Force bonding between Kylo and Rey, the whole thing with Luke, his final moment, sacrificing himself, kind of lining up against the AT-ATs and the army and everything. Those were like brand new moments that I thought were really, really interesting. And I'll gladly take a whole bunch of cute porgs and a flabby middle plot. Like when I think of which one I'd want to go back and watch, The Force Awakens is more of a breezy 2-hour thing.
Pure.
But I can't really remember anything that happened in The Force Awakens that hasn't already been done. Everything's just the same old stuff.
I mean, there's a few things that The Force Awakens did, specifically when Rey overtook Kylo's mind and was like, I can see you, you're afraid of the Force or whatever. Like, there were some cool moments there. But like Matt said, The Last Jedi takes that leap, dude. It's like, we're going to try and make some new Star Wars stuff. And I understand that. Here's the thing I keep saying is that Star Wars has a hard time because it's a war in a single universe. Star Trek is always about going and finding new things. Now, this isn't a Star Trek versus Star Wars thing, but when you have a story that is lent to always expanding your universe,
Yeah.
you're going to get people who accept it more. Star Wars people are really close to their lore. So as soon as you see a little ice wolf run past a crystal wolf run past the screen, there's people who are sitting there going like, where's that thing from? Why is that thing a thing? Me, I'm just like, oh, cute crystal wolf. I think they do a lot of things, like Matt said, specifically with like Luke's ghost, with the telepathy. You kind of breezed over that, but in the ending of the film, it's essentially the rebels are held out in this kind of cliffside, like it's a cave and there's only one exit, and they're all coming down on them with all their AT-ATs. They have this big old cannon they're going to blow up, all that stuff. They blow a big old hole through the door, and they're like, this is it. We're going to get the good guys. And then Luke Skywalker comes out of nowhere, and Kylo Ren's like, fire everything we have, fire everything we have. And they blow it up, and then, nope, Luke is still alive. He's cool. And then they have this little sword fight where Luke is dodging everything. And then the very end, Kylo's like, I'm going to kill you. And then he runs his lightsaber through Luke, only to find out that Luke is sitting on Jedi Island, hovering, meditating his mind to project it. And then eventually he fades away. He goes, no, Kylo. I don't even remember what he says. But
he says, see you around, kid.
Oh my. Does he really?
Yeah. Because he gave him the Han Solo line.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right. Thank you. Thank you for saving me from that, because I almost threw a fit. That's his last line. And then he dissipates and his cloak falls. And then that's the end of Luke Skywalker. So you take a movie that really has never done something like that.
Yeah.
And then they make it the end piece. Real briefly, let's talk about, well, is there anything else you wanted to say about the visuals? Because besides the whole anime moment, the whole ending, they're on this planet that's got salt, almost like snow. If you imagine a whole planet full of snow. Yeah. That's a funny thing, too. It's like a big planet, and it's all got white stuff on top, and then there's like a red soil. And me and my girlfriend, we're watching, we're fighting the whole time. I'm like it's snow. And she's like, no, it's like crystals. And then there's a guy in a trench who like takes his finger and goes, it's salt. And I'm like, okay, it's salt. But there's a really cool moment where they're all on like these light speeders that they kind of drop an anchor into the ground, and so they're kicking up this red dust. And I thought that looked really cool. The juxtaposition between the white and then just the pure red. A lot of really good use of colors, I would say, across the board. Some of the dark scenes seemed muddy to me. Kind of.
When I came back from the bathroom the second time I watched it, I was hoping to skip most of the casino stuff. I came back right when they had ran away on top of those creatures, and right before Benicio del Toro picks them up. And Benicio I couldn't. I thought, did my eyes? I guess because being out in the hallway, it was so bright. It was so dark. Yeah, and it was like poorly lit. But in terms of overall visuals, is no, I think it was obviously really, really strong. They did as much stuff in camera with enough, as much, practical effects as they could. And I think overall, I mean, it looked great, sounded great. Yep. That part is definitely, it's going to be a fun time in the movies in terms of that. The only thing that's going to disrupt people is just that it's a little bit saggily paced, and some people are going to throw a fit about it. But I just think the culture we have on the internet, especially with Star Wars, is such a lightning rod for it.
Get mad about it first.
It's I think people are in a competition where they just want to have the strongest opinion.
Yes.
And because they're trying to fight for attention on the internet. So I think that a lot of that kind of comes out of it. It was, it's a great movie with some dumb stuff in it, but it was worth the risks to get the high points. Force Awakens took no risks and was a lot more forgettable, but was still good too.
I 100% agree. And I would like to echo the thought that Matt just had. I think that's the biggest problem, is that we have this era of interconnectivity. Everybody wants to be heard. And if you just, everyone's saying, okay, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. Matt likes to complain about this all the time. Everything is an 8 out of 10. Yeah. Everything is okay. And so what people will do is they'll push their opinions certain ways to make it stand out. Like maybe someone went to the theater and they saw The Last Jedi and they thought it was okay. And then they go to their friends, they say, I'm done, I hated it. But only because they want to be that person who doesn't like it. And unfortunately, oftentimes the truth of it is lost. Now, I understand that everybody has an opinion, and if your opinion is to hate or love the movie, whatever, I think the true fact of this movie is that it's a good movie that took some chances and failed in some parts. And that's just that. It's fine. You don't have to love it. You don't have to hate it. It doesn't have to be black or white. for a Star Wars film, I understand you want to pick a side, but like there is allowed to be an okay Star Wars film that scratches that itch and might not get to it because guys, calm down. We're going to have another Star Wars film next year, and then the year after that, and the year after that. But visually and audio was the first thing I noticed. I was like, wow, sound mixing is good. But I wanted to get into, Matt, if you don't mind, the things that people are going to get pissed off about, because there's things that people get pissed off about, and you can mark them very easily.
Sure. One quick thing I wanted to add is that something I didn't notice until the second time I watched it. Mm-hmm. There's a hint about Luke killing himself at the end when Kylo and Ren first, not Kylo and Ren, Kylo and Rey, when they first join up and first have their Force thing, Kylo is really confused. He goes, "What are you doing? How are you doing this?" He's like, "You're not projecting yourself here. That would kill you." And it's something I totally missed the first time I saw it. And then the second time I'm like, oh, I see. It would kill you to do that.
Okay. Yeah. This movie has a lot of foreshadowing in that too. The way that Luke's whole entire path echoes Anakin's path almost very literally. You know, like Anakin is good until he kills all the Younglings. I like to make that joke, like everyone does. But then, you know, Luke is really good until he has the Jedi Academy and tries to kill Kylo or whatever. That's another thing I kind of don't like about this movie is that it's a lot of he said, she said. So Kylo in these, I said we were going to talk about one thing. I hopped over it. But Kylo's like, did you know what happened at the Jedi Academy? And then Luke's like, this is what happened at the Jedi Academy. Yeah. And then Kylo's like, he didn't tell you all of that. And she's like, yeah, he did. And it's back and forth. And then eventually you don't know what's true. Thing for Rey's parents. He's like, Kylo's like, your parents were nothing. You know this. Is that the truth? Probably not. But they spend like at least 3 or 4 scenes going over the same thing. But to that fact, here are the things that people are complaining about. So if you're wondering why people are like, well, why is The Last Jedi's crap? I give up. They've ruined the franchise. Here's like the 3 things. Matt, if you want to take one after I take one, I think that would be fun.
Okay.
I'll take a light one so you get the big one.
Sure.
Like Matt said, Jedi, specifically Kylo Ren and Rey, can just see each other. They can't see the surroundings of them, but at random parts of the movie, I think the first time it pops up, or maybe the second time it pops up, like Rey's just standing and she's looking out on a cliff. And the way they do it is they'll cut to Kylo Ren inside of his chambers or whatever, and he's looking off the camera in a specific direction, and they're talking to each other. They can see each other in body, but not where they are. And so they can just talk. And then eventually you find that Luke and Leia can also do that in a small way. They explain it because Snoke is like, I was bridging your minds or something. But there's this new force power of telepathy. Unless it's been in previous Star Wars films and I just don't know my history, that was a big thing originally. Like now you can have Kylo and Rey
they could never see each other, but they could communicate with like thoughts, and they could basically have conversations with each other.
Yeah, you can like thieves can't and stuff like you could do in D&D, you know, send Jedi messages or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was a little bit different. Matt, you take the one that everyone's gonna freak out about. The one where it's the character defeating moment. This is a big issue I have with the movie.
When Snoke dies?
No. That I was just like, whatever. I literally called that before I went into the movie. I called it. Like I was like, Snoke is going to die, and it's going to be Kylo who does it. I also thought that Finn was going to be in his little coma for the whole entire movie, and then come out and fight Phantasma. But I was wrong there. And I did call Luke dying. I think I also thought they were going to kill off Finn, but they didn't.
So hang on. So what's the second thing you're talking about? What's this big?
So we have a scene where they're attacking the big ship. You know, everybody's on the ship. You have all the resistance. Leia, Princess Leia. Kylo goes in. He blows up all of their ships. They can't get off the ship now.
I really like that. I thought that was a really intelligent move. He was going in so fast as possible, skipping everything. He was doing that cool barrel roll thing.
And he just went video.
And he just like flew in as fast as possible. He didn't shoot anything except that. And I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah, there's a great camera trick there where he's in his TIE fighter and he starts doing a million spins and the camera spins with him.
Yeah,
and then he just
to orient you, but know that he's strong enough that doesn't bother him.
Yeah, like he's an excellent fighter. So he flies in, he blows up their planes, and then essentially he's got him like a sitting duck. And then he, you might have seen it in the trailer. They made it cut a little bit differently, but he has his finger hovered over
Oh yeah.
a missile button because he's aiming at the bridge where his mother, Princess Leia, is sitting. And they do like a kind of, oh, Princess Leia close up, him close up. He's deciding. He moves his finger away from it, and then 2 TIE fighters come in and blow up, right? They blow up the ship, or they blow up the
Right.
bridge,
Yeah.
killing Leia, killing Admiral Akbar, killing pretty much every single person at the top, right? And that was a good character moment for me because Kylo found that even though he chose not to, his actions or inactions still have consequences. Everybody dies. And then Leia somehow survives the vacuum of space, glows a bit, and then literally reaches her hand out and Superman's through space, flies back into the starship and kind of like lays down in a bed. And they never explain it. And here's the thing. It's okay if you want to introduce some crazy shit like that out of nowhere. But my biggest issue is that it killed the character development for Kylo. Kylo had this moment where he's like, I'm going to kill my mother. No, I'm not. And then he watches her get blown up. And then all of that has no consequence. A lot of these things, it doesn't matter. Nothing he did or he didn't do. His mom's still alive, right? You know, like, and coupled with that, the reason she's still alive is because she became Superman and flew through space, which was that explained at all? Or is just Princess Leia the best, I guess?
The first thing I want to respond to is that you say, that's a really good point you made. And I think that you can say that for a lot of this movie is that nothing matters. This is kind of like a bottle episode on a sitcom where it's like they were just killing time. All right, Luke died, but he was on an island the whole time anyway, and now he's just going to be a ghosty guy. So basically the same. I mean, like Finn woke up and was going to sacrifice himself. We lose that moment. The girl kisses him, but he doesn't really seem that into it.
Real quick, that's the line she says. The line she says, I groaned. She saves Finn from killing himself, and then she goes, "We don't win the war." She goes, "Yeah, that's how we win. We don't kill the people we hate. We save the people we love." Me from the back of the theater. Oh, like, but yeah,
it felt pretty out of place. It felt pretty rushed. I think his reaction was the audience's reaction, like, what?
Yeah, because then she kisses him and he's like, I didn't feel any of this the whole time. Like, at no point did I even get the feeling that Rose, like, you know how Rey kind of gave, I think, who was it? She would give off looks and stuff to Finn, and Finn would give back looks, and you could sense there was chemistry, some sort of love between them.
A little bit, very, very small amount. But and also in this one,
none of it from Rose.
They were really planning, like, when Finn first wakes up, Poe goes to him and says, "You must have 1,000 questions." And the only question he has, where's Rey?
Yeah,
I want to marry her. So the Leia thing, I mean, Leia is strong with the Force because Yoda and Obi-Wan, when they were disappointed that Luke left his training in Empire, they said, no, there's another. Leia is able to Force communicate with Luke. So in the decades from her, from Jedi into Force Awakens, you would it wouldn't be a stretch for her to have developed those powers, right? She could have trained with Luke.
I have no issue with her having the powers. I just have an issue with her revealing her ability to use the power when she's dead. It's like almost could be ex machina at that point. The only reason she has that ability is to save herself. You know, like I would if in the beginning of the movie someone whispered and they're like, "Hey, I saw Princess Leia levitating the other day," like then I would be okay with it because at least there's a little bit. You know,
or like kind of like in Empire Strikes Back where they walk past Darth Vader's chamber and he's got this thing lowering down on his head, and you get these little glimpses of what he does in his spare time.
Yes.
And you know that, underneath the mask, he's this, like, weird freak. But, so, yeah, if maybe they would have went by her thing, like, what are we going to do? And Leia's in there kind of floating or something and, like, thinking with the Force. Because she seems like somebody who would use it if she had it. Like, the flying part, I mean, we've seen Jedi do extremely long jumps, so it's not a big stretch that they would be able to push themselves. The way,
She's the way it was human, though. Literally, when she got sucked back in, the first thing I said is she part droid? Because regardless of what, she's a human being. She is not an alien race. It's a vacuum. You need oxygen to survive.
It'll boil your blood. There's so much going on in space. It's not just being underwater.
It's fantasy. You know, I understand it's fantasy, but I was like,
I blame Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, I was, when I watched that with somebody, that was the first, they went, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But at least in that moment, it's like he's out there for 2 seconds, then she puts on the breathing mask. It's not like he floats through space after he's died. We're getting
Anyways, so that part, as the first time I saw it, I despise it for two reasons. One, it looks really cheesy.
Yeah,
Two,
that part too.
Carrie Fisher died, and it was an emotional experience for a lot of people that were fans, just because for personality and the big outpouring of love and the tributes. To me, this felt like, oh, okay, now we're all just gonna sit here in the vacuum of space, and we're gonna think about how this is really sad that Carrie Fisher is dead. So for her to come back felt really cheap.
I think it would have been a good way. I don't know how they would have written it, but I was fine with her death scene. And I feel like, yeah, she filmed everything. They wrote everything before she passed away.
Yeah.
There's no way just to go back and cut her out. She's very integral to the end of the film as well. But it could have been handled a little bit differently, knowing, we don't have to linger on Leia's body for fucking like 10 seconds. Excuse my language, right? It's a little bit unnecessary.
It was handled in a way that felt very cartoonish. But the second time I saw it, when she is flying back in, and they all kind of run, and then like the little blonde girl who's like the go-getter on the bridge with the like very British looking face.
I remember
her kind of watching Leia's big power. For some reason, that got me the second time. I felt that emotionally for some reason. I kind of surprised myself. I'm like, oh, that's really nice. They're so in awe of the great general, who's this poor old lady who still has to keep fighting in a war.
I feel like there's several moments in this movie that because a lot of original Star Wars was cheesy. A lot of it was ham-fisted and a lot of it was weird, but there's a magic to it. And some of these things are just maybe going to hit for you, maybe not. Like some of the parts that I thought were cheesy, I was like, okay. Like I'm all right with a little bit of cheese and some camp in my Star Wars, because go back and watch the original trilogy in its original cut. It's a campy movie at points. I think,
but underpinned with a grit to it.
So what else is gonna piss off people? Just
Snoke dying seems to have insulted a lot of people. They go, oh, we're supposed to get a backstory. Why did all these things that
they built Snoke up like a villain, and then in the end he was just a set piece to kill. Yeah.
And I liked Snoke in the first one. I liked him here. I thought that he seemed very threatening. He seemed very powerful. I think it was a little so over the top the way that he died. Oh yes, I feel your lightsaber turning. Oh, yes. I'm really telegraphing it out. It was so obvious that he was gonna kill him that you thought maybe they weren't, or maybe they were. But I'm fine with them dying, because this is another recreation of a scene from Return of the Jedi. So I'm glad that they got this out of the way, and now they can do something new with the third one. However, we've lost Colin Trevorrow, and now we got JJ back, and JJ, he's Mr. Like, what are you doing? We were supposed to make Star Wars movies.
We're supposed to make Star Wars forever. Well, and coming back to what you said earlier, like you said, it's kind of a bottle movie. What Johnson does is opens up a lot of streams and then closes them and resets us at zero. Yeah. At the end of the film, you have Kylo, General Hux, and the army, the bad guy army, the New Order, whatever the heck their name is. And yeah, that's it. Snoke's dead. The Supreme Leader's dead. Everyone's is kneeled to Kylo. At the end, with the Resistance, Leia's still alive, but Rey is like the leader. She's the Jedi, right? And Luke is dead. We're back at this square one, and so much stuff has happened in between. But at the end, it doesn't really matter. At the end, what mattered was Luke sacrificed himself and Rey learned to lift some rocks. Like Finn going off and his whole thing is to make the First Order stop tracking their ship, okay? Yeah. The entire thing Finn does in the entire movie is, we got to go here, we got to get this thing, we got to find this code breaker, and that's what a lot of this movie is. This movie isn't a story they're telling you over time, it's an adventure film. So they need to stop this tracker. What does Finn need to do? He needs to get off the ship and find Rey. Oh, well, before we do that, we're going to need to break the code breaker, so we got to go to the casino and meet a code breaker. That's where we meet Benicio del Toro. Now we got to get to the actual ship. And it's like everybody's doing their own 5 different things, and they all wrap up, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really have a huge impact.
Well, there's no
on
consequence.
The overall lore.
What they could have done was they could have not gone to the casino world. They could have come up with the same type of plan on the ship. They could have found a way to get on board. The plan still could have failed because it wasn't reliant on them doing that.
Benicio del Toro could have just been a guy, like in the ship, you know?
He could have been a criminal, like on the ship they already had or something. He could have been like a known traitor or whatever that they'd put into the brig. You know what? Benicio could have been One of the guys that Rose says in the beginning, like, could you believe I had to stun a bunch of these people trying to run away already? He could have been one of the ones that they stunned. They bring him, and then he's like, no, I still want to get out of here, even though, you know, you shouldn't have trusted me. Because they actually didn't do anything. They just wanted Finn there to fight Phasma.
Benicio del Toro exists so there can be some social commentary, because Benicio del Toro's whole entire point is that there is no good or bad side. Everybody's making money on war, and that's the point. There's a weird political undercurrent in this movie that I don't really appreciate nowadays, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. But
I think it is.
Yeah, it's not. Here's the thing: is we go to Star Wars to get away from real life. I don't need Star Wars to tell me that there's people in this world making millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars off literal wars, because there's wars going all across, you know, the world, holy wars and stuff. And that's what Benicio del Toro's character is. He's just this guy who appears on the casino world to help Finn and Rose, and then his whole thing is, hey, guess what? I screwed you over, but that's the way the world works. Everybody's in it for money. Everybody who's dying and all these people who are sacrificing their lives, it's for nothing. It's for dollar signs.
Also, which fits with Finn, because in the first movie he was the same way. He's like, I don't care about the resistance. I don't care about anything. Let's just you know, save ourselves, and that's what he wanted to do in the first scene. Basically, this movie again.
And I'm conflicted, because I love Benicio del Toro's character, but I just hate the message they're trying to put across in my Star Wars film. But
did you like the way he spoke?
You know what? I guess I didn't really notice a difference. There was like a weird, like, wasn't there like a weird little lisp kind of thing?
He would stutter, sort of like a rapid stutter.
Benicio del Toro talks weird anyways.
This was a very, very intentional, cartoony sort of character voice.
I had no issue with it. I think a few times, now that you say that, I didn't hear exactly what he said. Like, I missed a few words in between. But Benicio del Toro wasn't really, you know, at no point was he like, the secret to the Force is blah, blah, blah. Like, he was just talking as he was. So I wasn't really paying too much attention. Performance-wise, oh, wait, there's probably one other thing that I think might irk people, or it might make people very, very happy. So at a certain point, Luke Skywalker's on the Jedi Island that contains the Lost Jedi tomes, or the Found Jedi tomes, the last books that teach the Jedi religion. They're very, very focused on making it appear as though Jedi is a religion. I mean, it is, but they want to push that across. It was a way of thinking, right? It's not the be-all, end-all for good side. But he's like, I got to get rid of all of it. I'm going to burn it to the ground. I'm just going to burn it to the ground. And he goes to burn it to the ground, and then he's like, no. And then out of nowhere comes literally a practical puppet of Yoda, which I loved. But I could understand people were like, whatever. And then he's just like, oh, young dumb Luke you are. Check me out. And then he just makes this lightning bolt appear from the sky and blow everything up. And then eventually he's just there to be like, Rey will save us. I'm here for nostalgic purposes. Like, that's, and I think that's what they do well in this movie is, like Matt said, they call back to certain scenes. He gives Kylo, Luke gives Kylo the Han Solo line. There's the Snoke thing, which is a Palpatine reference. So they do that well. Whereas The Force Awakens try to do it exactly, like replicate it.
Yeah.
The Last Jedi almost does homage to it, but I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna ramble if I talk anymore. So
I liked Yoda appearing. It made sense. It wasn't that he just came for nostalgic, because Luke had closed himself off from the Force, so there would be no way for Yoda to be able to reach out to him. So now he could. Yeah. He picked the perfect time to show up. But what I liked about it, I liked that he called him young Luke Skywalker. He looks so old. And I thought that he had one of the best new lines when he said, "We are what they outgrow."
Oh, I missed that line. We are what they outgrow.
Yeah, as referring to teachers, to trainers.
Yes. Yeah. No, so I mean, I loved the moment, and I liked his character. I liked the dialogue a lot. But when Yoda starts to talk, eventually it's just like, you know, the four words all switched up. You start to hear it all as one big, like, Spaceballs kind of thing. I
love that whole bit. I like that. I thought it was a very Yoda-esque lesson that he taught him, where he showed the great power that he had, and he was kind of like the wacky old Yoda from before, as opposed to the serious one. But also, I liked just them kind of laying out as two old guys watching this thing burn. And Yoda's always been this mix of like wisdom, but also he always has that rebellious feel to him, where he's like, you know, he wasn't afraid to burn something down that was 10,000 years old, or end basically the main concept of Jedi forever. I had no problem with it at all, and I think it worked really, really well.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you completely. I very much liked it, but I think that's something that could. I don't know if you're like a diehard Star Wars fan, you're like, why are they bringing back Yoda? Like, who knows, man? But
Well, the main
I
complaints I hear from people, maybe that we haven't mentioned, I mean, people saying that Snoke died too early and that he should have stuck around longer.
I think that's just I think that's a consequence of the film itself, that everything that happens in the middle is just a replicate. It's just to serve its own story. And unfortunately, while Ryan Johnson is writing his story, he needs to cover other things that happen in 7 as well. You know, 7 built Snoke up to be like the Darth Vader. You imagine him to be the one with the giant lightsaber, 7 feet tall, you know, fighting Rey, and in the end it's kind of like whatever. So I completely understand. But people are mad about Snoke dying too early. The Leia thing.
Basically, people are mad that they copy and paste a lot of things, and that they did the jarring humor, Leia flying, Snoke dying, and kind of maybe. But here's the thing: like, what I've been thinking about a lot is that, what do you do with Star Wars? The thing is, they brought it back. Disney paid $5 billion for this. They pay $200 million every time they want to make a movie, and people want to see Star Wars. After the prequels were such a bomb, well, they still made money. While the prequels basically burned a lot of the goodwill George Lucas had with people, Disney knew they needed to just come back with a very solid and a very safe Star Wars movie. Like, we're not going to do anything crazy. J.J. Abrams
The Force Awakens
did the perfect. The Force Awakens was that response. This one is testing the water a bit, but how many movies and how many movies are made that you could make 9 movies plus spin-offs and still have something new to do? There isn't really much else you can do because Star Wars is pretty narrow. All we know from it is that there's a war going on between two sides, and Luke was a nobody who rose to meet the destiny of his father. The story was wrapped up so perfectly in Return of the Jedi. Now you're forcing on these 3 movies at the end. George Lucas even had a lot more leeway with the prequels, but with these 3 movies, you're trying to set up new characters, but at the same time, you're trying to give people, here's Han, here's Leia, here's Luke, here's Chewbacca, here's all the scenes you're expecting. Until they get away from this, I don't know what else they could really do. I think that creating what they did was close to impossible, and I think that although these last 2 movies have their problems, that they managed to respect the franchise and make entertaining movies and even come up with anything new at all, I think is pretty miraculous.
Here's what they do. Well, it comes back to what I said earlier. It's the Star Trek versus Star Wars problem. Here is what they do. There's 2 ways they can handle this. Well, 3 ways. I have a way I would. You either accept the extended universe as written in the books, right? Because that's a huge following. And you start integrating those stories and those characters like Darth Sidious and things, people that only, you know, when you're talking about Star Wars on the internet and someone will be like, oh, well, you have to be a big Star Wars nerd to know that character. It's because they exist in books mainly. So if you decide to bring in the extended universe, you can do that. For a long time, they've kept those things separate. The book Star Wars and the movie Star Wars, yes, they're both canon, but they don't, you know, we don't kind of mesh them together. So you start introducing them through the spin-offs because you have this Han Solo movie, and then after that, like probably a spin-off in the extended universe, and then you start bridging them together. Or what you do is what I would probably do. You finish 9, however the hell you're going to finish 9. But the way you finish 9 is you either save Rey, save Finn. Okay, you save one or 2 important people, right? But the war between the Resistance and the Final Order is lost. Okay, they evacuate. They pull the Mass Effect Andromeda, and they go searching far, far, far reaches to get away from this ever-growing force, right? And then that's when you can start having spin-off movies where you introduce new characters. You have to have a reason to explore, right? You have to have a reason to set characters off into new areas of space without it feeling contrived. So I think if you take episode 9 and the war ends however it ends, if it was up to me, it would be that the bad guys would win, driving out the good guys who are left, and then they are going on their adventures. And then if you do that, eventually 3 movies down the line, you can come back and then be like, oh, look at all the stuff we did in episode 7 and 8. Like, we're revisiting. But what you said, there's only so much we can do now. 8 has started expanding. The spin-off movie is the Solo movie. And then we're at the end of the trilogy. From here, Rey and Finn are new characters, as are Kylo, but they're still hinging on the nostalgia of Chewbacca, of Han Solo, of Luke Skywalker.
And also their main problem and their main enemy is the same. It's this large Empire force and the growth of her becoming a Jedi is the same story.
So what I think needs to happen is you need to set a core group of characters. If it's Finn and Rey, let it be fine. I'm completely fine with Finn and Rey being the next two main characters. They need to leave. They need to leave the area immediate. Let's just call it the known Star Wars universe or the known Star Wars cinematic universe. And they need to go start in exploring these other areas and maybe making their own stories within there, like kind of how the Star Trek movies do. And then you can and those are the spin-offs, right? Or maybe those are the main ones. But you have spin-offs where you're starting to integrate new characters, new worlds. Oops, I hit my mic. And then much like Marvel does, you eventually can bring those all together and have a mainline story. If you think about Marvel, the Avengers is the mainline story, right?
Yeah.
That's like, those are the episode 7, episode 8s. And those come every 3 to 4 years, right? Right now, Star Wars is making a new episode Star Wars every other year. So I think if you stop, you do episode 9, and then you let them do a few spin-offs, and then maybe 3 years down the line, here is episode 10, where we've taken these 4 movies that we've worked with and, you know, the new things we've invented, and now we can start a new story. Because relying on Luke and his ghost and Yoda and everything that was from the 80s ain't gonna pull it anymore. Like, you can only recreate that good versus evil. We need a new Death Star exploding moment. And yeah, the anime through the ships was a cool thing, but that they can only, you know, they're only going to repeat that 300 times, right?
Oh my God. It's, you know what could work is with these spin-offs is, you know, when I was a kid who read books about Star Wars, there were two novels they weren't novels. They were a collection of short stories. One was called Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, and another one was Tales of the Bounty Hunters. And they were all side stories, short stories, where they would take that lineup of bounty hunters on the Super Star Destroyer in Empire Strikes Back, and each one of them got a couple chapter long story. You could have new characters. You could have new arcs. It didn't rely on Luke, Darth Vader, Leia. It had nothing to do with them. You did the same thing with Mos Eisley Cantina, all those little characters, all those people you'd see in a flash. But I think when they said we're going to make a new trilogy, you're stretching it, because it's like, what could you really do with it? You have Rey, but we
don't need trilogies. We need good films.
Yeah,
you know, it's whoa, dropping your keyboard. It's okay if you want to make a new mainline Star Wars. It's okay if you want to make a new mainline story. But I think Star Wars exists, and the Star Wars is generally accepted as a popular, like, you can't just say Star Wars and people don't know what it is. It may be some people, but across the globe, people know Star Wars. And I think it's finally time, now that we're all, like you said, 9+ movies deep here,
for the Jedi to end.
To end, yes, dude. Well, and they don't even have to end. It's okay if Rey is the last Jedi, but just get them away. The further away from Alderaan and the further away from all of the stuff they've been doing, they can get, literally, physically. Go to somewhere where it won't feel weird that they're at this weird giant casino, right? Like, I've never heard of this casino. I've never seen it before. It's never been mentioned. Why is it? It seems like something that would have been brought up because it's such a massive planet. Now, if before they did that, we're talking about The Last Jedi now, Rey and Finn were like, hey, we got to jump through to this crazy place we've never been before in the universe, galaxy, whatever, on the outer reaches, right? They always talk about, we got to get our friends from the outer rims, right? We got to get our signal that'll reach the outer reaches for our allies.
Yeah.
I want them to go past the outer reaches and explore what's there, and then they can make some sort of mainline story. Find a threat out there. It doesn't have to be, I know Star Wars has always been good and evil, but maybe it doesn't have to be a big group of people who are basically Nazis or whatever the hell the New Order is supposed to be. Maybe it's a giant alien force that's going to kill us. And yeah, that's Marvel, but it doesn't have to be what it's been for the past 30 years, right?
But
it's tough. I don't envy the writers.
Yeah, and that's why I'd say that the more I think about what they were trying to do, tacking on a trilogy to the end of something that was already so perfectly told.
Yes.
And I think that they did a fantastic job of coming up with something that's pretty interesting. So, in the end, I think we've covered most of it. You know,
Yep.
the action in this thing was great. The climax was great. I loved Luke strolling on. I loved that whole element of it. I think the movie was worth making just for that. Luke
Yes.
showing up out of nowhere, regardless of how cheesy he looks with his dyed beard. Oh my god, that looks so good.
Don't get me started.
But
It's
like
silly.
him strolling out, the way that they removed the Foley effects, so his feet didn't make any sounds, and the way they got rid of, they didn't have his footsteps, the way they didn't actually touch lightsabers at all. It
Yeah,
was
he
just,
dodged underneath.
you know,
it
those
with, like,
elements were so, that was so badass to see him just stand up the whole thing. That's what everybody had been. They did a great job of the very first in the opening crawl. It's like they need Luke to stand up to the Empire, and
Yes.
there he was. That's what Ray wanted. He's there. Everyone's like, yeah, he's gonna do it. But he did it in such a cool way, such a smart way that I thought was super interesting.
I generally think that there's a lot of great Star Wars moments in this movie. I just think that the amount of world building and the amount of things that Rian Johnson was trying to create should have been contained to spin-off films. I know, like, that's something that's easy to say because it's all written in the way it is now. But when you're in those planning stages and you're deciding, do we want to go to this giant casino planet? Like Matt said before, you can very easily completely rewrite those sequences, like make Benicio del Toro a prisoner. If you do these things early enough, that whole Finn and Rose adventure could have been a spin-off, which then would have cut episode 8 down by 45 minutes to an hour and would have been a more, solid experience.
Yeah.
I think they need to start thinking about doing that rather than making each Star Wars an episode Like, you hated Rogue One. I loved Rogue One. So those things are going to split people between. But I think for the franchise to succeed, especially under Disney, without being washed out, they need to start, I don't know, maybe not making 3-hour movies that have too much in them for one movie.
The movie is only 2.5 hours.
Yeah. With credits, I think it's 2:44. The credits are like 8 or 9 minutes. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm not even talking like there's a lot of scenes. There's a lot of characters. We didn't even mention. Did we mention that new character with the Hunger Games hair?
What?
The Hunger Games hair character that takes over for Princess Leia. Did we mention her?
Oh God, no, we didn't. Laura Dern.
Okay, perfect example here. Like, so earlier when they blow up the bridge, everyone dies. They're like, Admiral Akbar died, everyone died. And then here comes this new girl, this new lady, and she's like, I am now the captain of the ship because she's the successor to Leia. And then so she does her whole thing, and her whole reason for being there is you don't know her, so you're not sure if you should trust her or Poe, right? Eventually, it turns out she's good. So instead of making this new character who no one connects to, they should have just used Admiral Akbar or, I don't know, any other character that I had seen before, because in Star Wars Episode 7 there was tons of administrative characters. So the need to introduce a brand new character who maybe has 4 or 5 scenes, doesn't hold any power on the screen, and eventually is inconsequential. Those are the reasons that
just a character that was created so to not even exist anymore, a character that her design too just felt so prequely, just too smooth, too polished, too purple, too try hard. Like, how can we make her look more sci-fi? I know, purple hair, and just nobody has purple hair in this universe.
No, they don't. Remember when people when Episode 7 was about to come out and the screens were being leaked and people were talking and they're complaining about how their outfits looked, and they're like, it looks like military, and and then you look at this movie and oh my god, like I said, if you took a screenshot of this movie, it could even have freaking Luke Skywalker in the picture, and you put a different title over it, you could potentially fool me. Because a lot of this movie, besides like C-3PO, R2-D2, and the characters and the Millennium Falcon, a lot of it's just brand new stuff. It just looks spacey, and I don't think it gets the Star Wars aesthetic. But then again, who the hell even knows what that aesthetic is?
Well, I think of the aesthetic as, and I noticed this in The Force Awakens and how they designed Poe and how they have Finn, they basically make them wear clothes that Han Solo wore. Or they go for this like Tatooine look. They go for like a leather jacket. Maybe they'll send out like police pants, a loose belt, like whatever. Because Finn ends up with Poe's jacket. That's the Han Solo look. They incorrectly go for this kind of like Jedi, what Obi-Wan wore on the desert planet as a hermit. There's way too much of that.
Almost.
But when it's not super necessary, that's interesting. I feel like they actually went pretty strong for like the Star Wars aesthetic, where everything looks very, very Star Wars.
Oh yeah. I agree that it looks Star Warsy enough. It's just like everything is so brand new, right? Everything is like most of the costumes you're seeing and stuff. You know, you've never seen those before. It was just funny to see people freak out when Episode 7 came out, but now we've come so far in the other direction, and people are no longer people complaining about, hey, that guy, he doesn't even be looking like he's wearing a Star Wars uniform. Now people are like, hey, why is Princess Leia star manning through the sky? Like, you know, we've come so far in what people are willing to accept in their Star Wars movies that we might as well just go keep going. Keep going. I want to see Princess Leia float up in the air, her hand glow red, and then just punch into the ground, split Alderaan 2 in half because they remake the planet through cloning. That's what I want to see.
Or Leia's like, don't worry, I'm gonna fly around the Earth backwards so fast that time goes backwards. And you're like, wait a second. So when Superman reversed time on Earth by reversing the rotation, does that mean now Earth is now behind Mars and Neptune and all the other planets? Did time only get changed on Earth?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. And now in that Earth universe, Earth is just wait, which one are we talking about? Does he do that in the new Man of Steel?
No, he does that in an old it's an old Superman thing.
Okay, I was gonna say, because I was like, yeah, then we've been off for ages. Christopher Reeves did that to us a long time ago, man. So that's probably Mercury's in retrograde, guys, or Mars, whatever.
Now, King Noir joined in on Twitch and said, true fan of Star Wars, love the universe, but episode 7 and 8, just one question.
Yes.
Where are the Siths?
Yeah, that's something I wanted to bring up too, Matt. You can go first if you want.
Well, I think that's a pretty good question because you have, all right, so in the old Star Wars universe, the Jedi are thought of as basically extinct. Obi-Wan's in hiding, Yoda's in hiding. So many Jedi were killed in the prequels, George Lucas tells us, right? And Darth Vader hunted down and murdered all the Jedi, including your father.
We're going to kill them all. We're going to get them.
And that's what they did. So then you have the Emperor and you have Darth Vader. Even Darth Vader's colleagues on the first Death Star were like, oh, your sad devotion to that ancient religion and your sorcerer's ways. So people don't really believe in it and they don't see it. Han Solo didn't believe it either, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe the Emperor and Darth Vader killed anyone who had Force power and probably were like hunting down. So I think that all the other Sith were just as in hiding as much as Yoda and Obi-Wan were. And then now that the Emperor is dead and Vader's dead, Snoke rises kind of from the shadows and maybe he's the most powerful one now and he'll kill anyone else that tries to be visible.
Snoke is a Sith, right?
I would assume so. He's a dark Jedi guy with a mangled up face, so I'd assume he's a dark side Sith guy. He shoots lightning and all that.
Well, I think, because Kylo brings up, like, it's time for it all to end. The Jedi, the Sith, the dark, the light, all of that. Kylo wants to become Adolf Hitler or whatever, or maybe a good dictator, who knows. But here's the thing. I'm so glad that guy came up and brought that up because they abandoned certain things. So in The Last Jedi, when he says, we're talking about the Jedi Academy and what went wrong between Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker. Well, what went wrong between Ben Solo that kind of birthed Kylo Ren, his betrayal, if you will. He says he burnt the Academy down and he left with some students.
Yeah,
right?
The Knights of Ren.
Where the heck are the Knights of Ren in this movie? Because that is like what I thought the Knights of Ren were going to be Kylo, and then Kylo, that's what I thought going in. I thought Kylo was going to kill Snoke, and then he was going to become, using the Knights of Ren, his own thing, and then that's what we were going to get in episode 9. But it's almost like they just completely forgot that there's, like, I don't know, 5 trained Jedi who are Knights of Ren chilling just somewhere. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I kind of, like, when I see a crystal wolf run across the screen, like, it's cute, and the 40 porgs are cute. But I do want to know what happened to one of the coolest band of trained Dark Jedi that were just mentioned, right? And I'm sure we'll get it in 9, but that's the kind of thing I need, you know? So where are they? What happened to those guys? Or did they die?
Well, that's the thing is that it does feel very, very glossed over. There is zero mention of it. I mean, well, other than just the name of it. So
when you go into episode 9, if they appear, people are gonna be like, who are the what? And you're gonna need a scene before when he goes, remember the Knights of Ren when I got them? Like,
well, you're gonna need something. To me it seems like in the first trilogy there were a lot of these things that were just thrown out into the air that were never ever addressed again. Like, oh, you fought, like when Luke asks Obi-Wan when he first meets him and he's at his house, oh, you fought in the Clone Wars? And it's this idea. And Leia
Yeah.
says, you served my father in the Clone Wars. And it's just this kind of thing that old people talk about. And the Knights of Ren to me feels like that's just a thing that happened, but it wasn't that long ago. Actually, no, not
No.
really. Actually, it was maybe, but no, it couldn't have been that long ago because it was when Kylo was old enough. He was a
Do you
teenager or an
Do you
adult.
see Kylo? Kylo looks like he's just maybe 3 or 4 years younger. He won't no baby youngling. He was like just if Kylo Ren in this movie is Adam Driver's age, so like late 20s, early 30s, because he looks good in this film. He looks buff. He looks like also screw that scene. That whole thing was like,
Oh, and the joke of
Disney,
it. Oh my God.
Disney don't like if for some reason you haven't seen it and you're still watching, there's a scene where because Kylo and Rey can sometimes see each
He's
other.
not
they
wearing
can
a
see their
shirt.
person.
He's all sweaty. And Ray
He's in the
goes,
shower or
Ray
something.
goes, could you put something on, like a cowl or something? Like, oh my God, we don't need to have that.
And he has just these big man pecs and like his abs are covered by his like hip of his. It was just there so people could be like, oh, Kylo Ren. But I lost my train of thought. Kylo's pecs threw me through a loop.
Well, it's with these. No, you're talking about the age. But here's the thing: when Luke,
Oh yeah.
when Luke was in the flashbacks and he had that badly dyed beard,
Yeah, he
that
looked
means he
weird.
must have been much, much younger, right? But it was still
Yeah.
Adam Driver in the thing, and he said the last thing I saw when I looked in his eyes was here's a young, scared boy.
when we pulled him from the burning.
So he might have been a teenager, like kind of an oldish teenager at that point,
can't
and
be-
now
he can't be
he
more
could
than
be
20
in his
or-
mid-30s at this point as Kylo
Can't
Ren.
be more than 20 years. Let's just say that, right?
Yes, 20 years.
Yeah.
So the Knights of Ren could have been murdered by Snoke, maybe sent in on missions and died. Maybe Snoke said, all right, first thing you got to do to pledge allegiance to me, kill the Knights of Ren because they're conflicted or something.
I feel like if that's what it was, then he wouldn't have even brought it up in episode 8. He wouldn't have been like, he took some of my Jedi trainees and ran off. Like,
Oh, he might have had them, and they might have been the Knights of Ren doing their thing for, like, say, 10 years. And then when he joined up with Snoke, because Snoke had already influenced his mind. It's really messy. It's a big loophole that unless they have, I don't know how they're going to write around it. I think they're just going to
That's what
continue to ignore it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying no one in this world should be able. That's the ultimate issue with Star Wars is that you can be like, well, but this, and then someone will tell you, nah, in the Star Wars lore, blah blah blah. As a movie, I know that the main guy with the cool mask broke out of Luke Skywalker's prison and took a bunch of people with him, and then they never brought that up again. I should not have to go to Phantasma, right? How she falls into the fire. I was like, oh, she's dead. And then my buddy was like, no, I guess the director said she's not dead. I shouldn't have to go outside of the movie to get closure on a story from a movie. You know what I mean? I think
Phasma
that's
doesn't die in Last Jedi?
Wait, what?
Captain
Phanta-
Phasma
She-
doesn't die in the Last Jedi?
Apparently, Ryan Johnson said that she will not be dead. She'll return. For brief recap, Finn goes
Because
like,
it's going to take a trilogy of movies for her to have one character arc.
I guess Finn and Phantasma meet. It's almost like they're about to leave, and she's like, "Wait, traitor!" And he's like, "Oh, we're gonna do this." He
Yeah,
throws
well, I
off
mean,
the
that was the
one-liner.
big finish of Poe's, the arc that he started with her a long time ago. I thought it was fine. They didn't do much with her again. She wasn't so much of a pushover. I felt like that was a
She
addressing.
should have had a fight. There
Yeah,
should
she
have
had the
been
big
a
fight, and and she called him scum. He said, "Yeah, rebel scum," because apparently he's read the scripts of the original Star Wars, so he knows what they call them. But it's there were a few things I felt that were in this movie that were so, to me, sounded like Snoke. To me, was a representation of internet trolls, like because he's this trollish looking creep who sits
Big
on his
head.
computer chair. He's got that really impressive VR rig over in the corner.
Yeah,
And then
right.
especially when he says, take off that ridiculous mask. I thought, yeah.
such a piece of shit. You are so weak, and Kylo Ren is nothing. You're just a boy in a mess.
I thought that was
yeah.
great. I thought that was such a like direct address of how people responded to the first one.
Yeah, but bro, hashtag where are the Knights of Ren? I'm sorry. That's just like that's what the point I was trying to get around to was eventually Phantasma, they break a little piece in her helmet so you can see that it's the actress that I wanted. She never takes her helmet off. I wanted to get that. But you see her and she's like, you'll get something. And
She
then
says, you're
all of a
still scum.
yeah, you're still scum. And he's like, we have rebel scum. And then the floor falls out and she falls into the fiery abyss. And I was like, wow, Phantasma was a really good character that I liked because she's always like, F982, I hate you. And like, I liked her. And I thought it was a cheap way to kill off the character. So then when I was complaining to my buddy on the phone, I was like, why'd they kill him off? He's like, no, I guess the director came out and said that she'll be in episode 9. And I was like, what? I shouldn't have to go and talk to the director of the film to learn, you know? And then like, okay, I guess that makes the moment okay. But so the same thing goes for Knights of Ren. Same things goes for, I'm sure there's 4 or 5 things we've forgotten about that were brought up in The Force Awakens. You know, there's so much stuff going on in this movie that eventually is inconsequential. Characters that are inconsequential, too many new features and stuff like that. And it's a functional movie, but it just suffers because of all the content. I think it's a good time. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about it. Like,
yeah, I thought it was good. I'd watch it again. I love the ending. I think it was worth the risks that it took and the stumbles. I would like to see somebody upload an edit that basically removes the casino and makes the movie 2 hours instead of 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's the chances it takes were needed. So despite how I feel about some of the things that may or may not have worked out, you know, that I might not have liked, they needed to happen because Star Wars cannot just purely exist as a nostalgic circle jerk. It's been like that for too long. So they needed to take chances, and whether or not I liked some of the chances they took, they needed to happen. I'm okay with it.
Because otherwise, what you get is, you know, when you go to Disney World or something, or like Universal Studios, and you go on the Star Wars ride, and you see a bunch of Star Wars stuff, and a little story happens, but nothing really happens. And that's what The Force Awakens felt like. Because the thing with The Force Awakens is that if you're a kid and you've never seen any Star Wars, and The Force Awakens was your first one, the whole scene, I just watched Force Awakens last night to kind of get a, you know, comparison. When Rey and Finn see Han Solo, they're the audience. They're like, "Whoa, Han Solo! Oh my God! Oh, the Luke, the Force, is that all true?" It's like, if you had never seen the other ones, this would make no sense to you.
Dude,
it only makes
Indiana Jones in this.
Yeah, it's like those moments. They're not being real characters, Finn and Rey. They're just Finn and Rey are basically just avatars for the audience to be like, "Yeah, Han Solo's back," and there's not really much else you can do, and just be thankful for what they managed to scrape out and come up with something new coming out of the Disney machine. This movie was way more interesting than anyone ever thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to be A New Hope Part 2, Empire Strikes Back Part 2. In a lot of ways it was, but he still managed to squeak in some things. The good with the bad. Overall, it's great. It's a great time. Overall, it's a great time. It's a solid movie.
Hey, what are you going to give it out of 10, Matt?
You know, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I might go back and change that to, I might change it to a 7.
I'm just giving you shit, Matt. You can name it whatever you want. Matt just always gives me crap for giving things 8s. I've given a lot of 8s lately, a lot of 9s too.
Things are 8s because they're churned out by a machine. They're not bad enough to be worse than an 8, but they're not original enough to be over an 8.
Well, I don't know. There's been some games I've played lately. Have you played Destiny 2 DLC? Hey, that'll... There will be a review up for that. I know it's completely has nothing to do with Star Wars, but go to a90skid.com. Generally speaking, if you want to read about movies, video games, anime, geeky stuff, and not a lot of anime on there right now, but we do cover all that kind of stuff. Matt did the review for Star Wars.
And I also put up a sort of an opinion on what Star Wars movies can be and what they should be and what we can expect. And I think we'll leave on Corey Lavoie's comment of 8.1. That's going to do it.
Wait, did we get any questions at all in the comments or not?
Nope.
There was the one from the one guy. Yeah,
I read them all. That's it. Okay, everybody. Goodbye for now.